You'd have often heard me say that I didn't love vetting for the first 10 odd years of my career until I found my mojo. Well, a lot of that mojo for me was found when I started an after-hours business that was partially mine. In other words, when I took on practice ownership. I can't put my finger on what exactly about that scenario ticked my boxes, but I think it is probably the increased sense of autonomy, the act of getting out of the kiddie chair in the back and into the driver's seat. And once the business was up and running, I had this recurring thought: why did I wait so long to do this? Now, practice ownership is not for everyone. It wasn't even for me after a while. But if a little part of you is wondering, should I start a practice? Then this one is for you. And if you already own a practice and you need some fresh ideas on how to make your business fit better with who you are, keep listening. You'll also get a lot from this conversation. I'm Hubert Dimstra, and you are listening to The Vet Vault, where we snap on our gloves and lube up to thoroughly examine the often overlooked areas of our beloved profession. And in this episode, we are asking what the process of starting a practice could look like. I chat to Dr. Amber Christie and Brooke Goodwin, a vet and vet nurse team who are the owners of a brand new vet clinic, about the challenges, which are not what you think, the highs, the lows, and the lessons learned from their Let's Start a Practice adventure. Dr. Amber is on practice number 4. After building the Neighbourhood Vet, a successful multi-site vet business in the UK, she sold up, returned home to Australia, and started again with the Neighbourhood Vet, just in a different continent and a very different set of rules. Amber draws on the benefit of hindsight to tell us what she's doing differently this time around, from the practicalities of actually setting up the practice to how they are thinking about things like boundaries, values, and growth. While Brooke shares her perspectives from a first-time business owner's point of view and what motivated them to set it up with full ownership for Brooke rather than just taking on a salaried role as a manager or a head nurse, and how they are making that work for them and for their clients. And then our third guest. What's the biggest thing that stands in the way of practice ownership for many of us? It's the money, right? It's scary and it feels like you need a financial backer with very deep pockets or $1 million or $2 million saved in equity before you can even consider starting your own practice. Caroline Willemse from Credabl made the money happen for Amber and Brooke, and she joins us to challenge some of those assumptions that you might have about business finance. So that's our cast for this one. The serial practice builder, the vet nurse turned practice owner, and the loosener of the purse strings. Hope you enjoy it. Before we start though, just a quick bit of admin. If you listen to this one and at about the 40-minute mark in the conversation, you think to yourself, hey, this sounds like a product testimonial for Credabl. Well, you're kind of right. I'm thrilled to have Credabl on board as a financial supporter of the podcast, and I wanted to utilize their expertise to make content that is useful for our listeners while also getting the message out about what they do. This Should I Start a Practice topic has been on my to-do list for a long time, and I thought it would be a great one to get our sponsor involved in. So yes, Credabl is sponsoring this episode because they want to give you money. Well, let me rephrase that. Not give exactly, but they want to find solutions for the situations where finance is the stumbling block that's stopping you from doing the things that you want to be doing. And they are giving me some money to help them get the word out. But Amber's testimonial is unscripted and she's not getting paid for it. Sorry, Amber. In fact, I can add my own unpaid, unscripted testimonial because the personal finance team at Credabl have recently sorted me out with a brand new mortgage for my home with an interest rate that is saving me substantial dollars. That's because they are a niche finance business that specializes in business and personal finance specifically for medical professionals, including, you'll be happy to hear, us vets. They must think that vets are financially savvy. Fools. It's too late now, Kimberly. Kim, who helped me with my mortgage, made the entire process of doing a bunch of intimidating paperwork and pulling your pants down in public, financially speaking, as smooth as you could possibly wish for. If you need to chat to somebody about loans, business or personal, get in touch with Caroline. She said that she's happy to give our listeners a free financial health check, or if you are already in the planning stages of starting a practice and you need that cash flow projection that Amber talks about in this episode, they have some templates that you can have. I have a link in the show description for you of how you can get a hold of Caroline. Oh, and one more thing. Credabl does actually want to give 5 practices money. Like, just give, with their Helping Hand grant. Any practice owner, not just Credabl customers, can apply for this grant before 15th of October 2024 with a link that we have for you also in the show description. Okay, ads done, introduction done. Let's get into it with our guests on what creating your very own practice could look like for you. Brooke, Amber, Caroline, welcome to the Vet Vault. Thank you so much for making the time. Proud new owners of a new practice, new baby. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Big, bold move. So classic podcasting question is, what gets you up in the morning? What motivates you? I want to flip that and say, what keeps you up at night since starting this, I don't like the word journey, but this journey.
Like coming from being a employee to now being a business owner, I think the reputation of the clinic, because I feel Amber and I have put ourselves so much into the business and making sure we want to do it the way we want to do it right. And I worry about how we're being perceived, I suppose, because it's so important to us to make sure that we take care of our patients and our clients, and we want to make sure that we're doing it the right way.
Yeah, I think that's true though, because as someone who's done it before, I certainly see Brooke worry about how it would be perceived, a lot more of the little things than I might these days worry about it. And that I might say, just let it go. You did your best and they'll come back or they'll let us know. And Brooke probably would worry about that more than me.
I could totally see that being an issue when you put that much heart and thought and love into creating a clinic, is that it becomes a reflection of you as a person, or it could feel like that. So how do you get over that? Is it just time and tribulations?
I think time, because I certainly would see myself in Brooke, 15 years ago, where it was all more personal, whether it's what the client thought or whether it's what my staff thought, it was all more personal. These days, although I'm still giving as much, I don't worry about that quite so much.
Have you got a more solid boundary between personal and business?
I'm very good at compartmentalizing, I think. And that's probably years of being a vet, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so there's no specific advice you can give to Brooke or anybody else on how to create that dissociation?
I think it's probably having enough other things outside work, being busy outside work. We both have families. I don't have large amounts of spare time to worry about too much at night because you're busy in the next thing, whether it be exercise, podcasts, family.
So basically, get a life, Brooke.
Two children, very busy. Thank you very much.
So Amber, you mentioned you've done this before. We chatted before. You've built from scratch 3 clinics before.
3. So this is number 4 now. And it's, believe it or not, as exciting as the others, if not more exciting, because I thought after those 3, when I sold, that I was done. And here we are. There's been about a 3-year gap. And here we are again, week 9 of a new clinic.
Yeah, that's one of my questions. Why do it again? I sort of picture that then when you get to the end of that and you have your buyout and you go, all right, I've done my bit. I want to take a break. Because you did a bit of locoming and stuff when you first came back.
Yeah. I was going to go and do something else. I don't know what it was. I'm really passionate about conservation and sustainability. So I was going to create for myself all this like pie in the sky stuff because I had no training in any of those things. And I think I went into a management role when I first got back. And the reason to come back into it was because all I could keep thinking is how I would do it differently. Not necessarily better or worse, just how would I do it differently? How would I have done that differently? How would I have approached that differently? And it just became this, instead of thinking about it, let's just get on and do it. You've done it before, be brave, let's do it.
So you have a skill set and a potential gift to give to the profession and to the clients, and you felt that you had to just do it.
Being in that management role made me realize, I think for a lot of years, I'd thought I had given a lot to clients, that I had put in a lot, and you put in a lot in a consult room. If you're someone that enjoys consulting, you give a lot of yourself. What I hadn't realized, and I realized once I was out of it, was I get a lot from my clients. I get massive amounts from my clients. And the days are great, and it's really fun if it's a two-way street. And I think over time I'd started to forget how much I'd gotten from them. And it took me to step out to realize.
And so you missed that, the client? Because I've said it several times on the podcast before, but it's such a recurring theme when I speak to vets I was going to say older vets, but let's not use that. Vets who've been in the game for a little while, and the guys who are 10, 20 years out who are still enjoying it. And often the secret ingredient is, I really like the client interactions, which is so ironic because, especially for younger vets, it's often, the thing I hate most about vetting is the client interactions.
But it's the thing that as you get older and become an older vet, and I'm just shy of 30 years out. So it's actually a thing that gets really easy. Yeah. It's the thing that you stop having to think about. It's the thing that becomes so natural. Like, why not do that for work? It's fun. Yeah. Ask Brooke, she's often going, Amber, it's been 40 minutes, you're out.
And is that a learned thing as well? The process, because I've found the same, that there's a point where it tips, where you go, oh, this thing that I really resisted and hated for so long, now I actually get joy and energy from? For you, is it just time? Is it just time in the game?
No, it was time's a big one. I think it naturally becomes easier as you're more experienced. I went and did a membership in medicine and feline medicine. And so knowing my stuff more also made it better for the client interaction. Yeah. It obviously makes it better for business, or it makes it better for the animals, but you don't realize while you're doing it, that extra education makes the client interaction so much easier because you just know what you're talking about.
Yeah, which helps a lot, doesn't it? When you don't feel, it's that imposter feeling. Like, oh, I'm not really confident what I'm saying, and now I've got to get your buy-in.
Yeah, and maybe it takes that away because it's not something I worry about too much. I'm sure there's been times, but not so much anymore.
So, business ownership, lessons learned from the past round. Like, what's different this time around that you maybe, from looking back to the previous businesses where you went,
I've thought about this every now and then, as in what makes you go back into it. I think probably one of the biggest lessons for me specifically is flexibility. Flexibility to my staff, as in their needs and what they need, and not to be quite so reactive around that because it's not stuff that you can control. I found the HR role of running a business not my favourite, and it did take me years to learn to be more flexible.
So explain more. So what did it look like in the past? Do you mean in terms of these are your set shifts and...
Yeah, all of it. Flexibility on, gosh, I've had people ask for holidays when they're out drunk at night, not just ask for them, but they book them. There's a clinic protocol that says, please make sure you book holidays, 2 weeks in advance, or, et cetera, your shifts need to be covered. Life isn't that straightforward. Mm-hmm. People get drunk. Last minute things come along. Families get sick. Things change, not just in your life, but in other people's lives. Everyone has their own life outside of work. And I think it became very apparent quite quickly that everyone in the building needs the same amount of flexibility from their boss as what you would hope to get should you still be an employee.
How do you make that practical? Because it's a massive thing. And I've actually looked back at when I was full-time vetting, analyzed what were the things I didn't enjoy. And to some extent, that was it. The fact that for the next year, my life is mapped out with minimal flexibility. If I want to go to the bank on a Tuesday or the dentist or something, you're kind of stuffed because, on the roster I'm working. And actually, autonomy in my own time is a big thing. How do you make, but the reality is the business has needs.
It does have needs, but so many of them are not critical. Like, let's say a book comes to me and says, hey, Amber, I need to go to the bank at 2:00 because I've got a bank loan application. And she had a nurse consult coming in. That nurse consult can be changed. Like that nurse, when you've got a good relationship with your clients, hi, Mrs. Smith, something's come up in my life, my child's sick, whatever it is, would you mind if ... That's so doable. I do have the option of saying, no, Brooke, you can't go to your bank loan appointment, but it's important in her life. So I feel like that needs to be made important in my life, because if the roles were reversed, I would hope that someone could see that's important to me. And we can make it work. We can. Now, there's times when you can't.
Yeah.
But generally, I think the answers would be yes, how do we do it? Not, no, that's not the protocol.
It's a massive paradigm shift, though, because we're such upholders and promise keepers. And I think it's something that potentially makes us such a trusted profession, because we say we're going to do something, so we do it. And to go, well, we can still say what we're going to do, but maybe with a bit of negotiation and conversation, because it is that thing, I've got my shift, I've got that appointment booked in tomorrow, I'm going to go in as sick as I am, or, I'll die on this hill, but I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do.
Yeah, but it is a paradigm shift. And actually, I would have learned over time that sick person, they shouldn't be coming to work. Let's not let the sick person in the building. Whereas 15 years ago, I probably would have asked them to come to work unless they were dying. These days, it would be, please stay at home, and we will accommodate because it's all okay. We can do it. We can do it. Then that obviously, it doesn't mean we're not putting the clients first, but it is what can we do? How can we make this work? And I think certainly your employees, when it can't happen, it's obvious. They go, well, can you see any way this can work? And they're like, oh no, I'm going to have to do it. But they can also see through when you try to put your foot down and go, no, rah, 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 rah. It's obvious that you're just being a bit arsey. So flexibility was a big thing.
So that's your big change compared to...
As a person, yeah, because I wasn't that person when I first opened practices.
But it translates to as a person in charge of the business to the business culture then, to the practice
As a boss,
culture.
it's become a huge change for me. And I had a very good mentor, which was my previous business partner. That was her. I learned a lot from her, that just don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff. There's a line from a movie. I don't even know the movie that I watched as a kid, but the wise person in the movie says, but there's 2 lessons in life, 2 rules in life. Number 1 is don't sweat the small stuff. Number 2 is everything is small stuff. All right, so back to starting a practice. Brooke, what's been the hardest decision? Because who this episode is for, I think, is going to be for people who have decided to start a practice or are on that point of going, I want to do my own thing. I want to be in charge. I want to be more flexible, or whatever your reason is for starting a practice. But there's so many worries and concerns and things to think about and plan and do. And I think it can be overwhelmingly daunting to the point where you go, I'm just not going to do it. Which is why we're going to talk about finance, because I think for a lot of us, that's the biggest stumbling block. But for you, Brooke, or for both of you, what's been the toughest decision so far?
Our logo. We had gone back and forth on so many different designs and nothing really felt like us. It didn't really feel like it fit with the clinic idea. It didn't really feel it fit with us as, a team, and we wanted it to stand out and we wanted it to be bright but not too bright, and cute but not too cute,
and different too, which is so hard because it's such a, when you think vet logo, it's like 5 things come to mind as that's what a vet logo.
Those 5 things I'm adamant I won't have. Like, I was quite opinionated. I was like, no cute puppies and kittens, crosses, no stethoscope, no stethoscope. The only one that we decided we could play with was an unusual paw print. Yeah. We sort of have, but we don't have as much of the logo. It's mostly about the words, but yeah. We got there in the end, but it was like pulling teeth.
I could totally get that. I think for me, that would be a huge, because exactly like you said, it has to represent you as a business, you as an individual. It's got to be cool. It's got to be eye-catching.
Everyone seems to have their own opinion as well. And as much as you want everyone's opinion, you just sort of want to put your fingers in your ears and say, okay, this is a decision I'm making without everyone's opinion. Because it is hard, because you get, one person saying they love it, another person they're like, oh, maybe we could try this. And it's just like, I felt like I loved it. And then someone had said something to me and I was like, oh, I just wasn't sure.
Stay the course, Brooke. You loved it last week. The logo's great. We're doing it. We loved it last week.
It's beautiful and very distinctive as well, which is exactly what you want.
That's what we did want.
Yeah,
and that's the big decision of like, I don't know, ultrasound machine or dental or hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment, but the hard one's the logo.
Completely. The rest was just, it really was. Yeah. I mean, I think we have come out of this going, well, that was really straightforward. Yeah. And because we enjoyed doing it. Yeah. It didn't feel like work.
What the actual planning of the executing on that was straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
So that's so interesting, because again, I think for lots of people who think maybe I want to start a business, it does not feel straightforward.
I suppose because Amber's done it before, we didn't really have a set, schedule or diary or anything like that, did we? We sort of just met lots and created lists and talked a lot, and we took on roles that we both enjoyed. And because we have different
strengths.
Different strengths. And my role was different to Amber's in the clinic. And I think because I can see things from a different point of view, as in like the nursing side of things, and Amber is, obviously knows a lot more about particular equipment and all that sort of stuff. I think we complemented each other in making those decisions, because we can, say to one another, oh, I feel like maybe this would be better, or as a nurse, I might stand here in theatre or whatever, or can we please change this thing so it makes my life a little bit easier? And I think because we have those different roles in the clinic, I think we complement each other in the design phase. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's lots of options of, if you're starting out from scratch, do you use one of the veterinary design companies? Do you use your own personal builder? I don't think there's any right or wrong. No. We used our own builder, but I have built clinics before. Yeah. So I was coming at it from a slightly different perspective. I'm sure the design companies do it in a very much more scripted, straightforward way, but you pay for that straightforward way. And we brought the clinic in highly under budget than what we thought we were going to.
Oh, wow. You never hear that sentence.
And there's certain dollars there that wouldn't have been spent because we were keeping it in-house.
Just a quick break to tell you again about our specialist support space, and then we'll get straight back to our guests. You know how on those social media groups, people are forever asking case questions. What do you think of these rads? What am I missing? What works? I don't get these blood results. And then a lot of very helpful colleagues pipe up with a lot of answers, and you have to sort of pick an answer out of the many opinions of people who are, on average, just about as qualified as you are. But sometimes what you really want is a specialist to weigh in on the issue. Well, now you can. We've gathered a bunch of our favorite specialists onto our very own social network, where you pay about $15 a month, or less if your boss is paying for a bunch of you, to be able to ask them all of your tricky case questions. We have 3 medicine specialists, a diabetes expert, a dermatologist, a surgeon, and an oncologist. And in the past few months, they have already helped our grateful members with hundreds of cases. If you want to be one of those grateful members, you can get the details on our website at thevetfold.com. Just look for specialist support or click the link in the show description. Okay, back to our guests. So, which brings us to the fairy godmother who made it all possible with the magical sprinkling of dollars. I think for a lot of people, that would be the big stumbling block to go for all these great ideas. I even know what the logo is going to look like, but I don't have the money to do this shit. And I've never gone through this journey. I had a different approach to starting a vet clinic, so I don't have experience in this. Let's start with this, Caroline. So you guys do finance for businesses. Biggest myths and misconceptions around getting finance for a vet business that you guys come across, and because you do dentistry and all sorts of other stuff as well.
We're a specialist medical and vet finance provider. So I think with that question is that you can't borrow to set up a practice, or you need to put your home up as security, or you need to have the self-funded or have the money to do it. And so a lot of vets actually don't realise that their trusted profession allows them access to 100% funding to set up a practice.
Really? So I thought exactly that. I thought, well, if you do it, well, then you put your house as collateral security. Nah? You don't. You can separate it and say, hey, Caroline, can you give me $1 million or $2 million to start a business? I have this plan.
If you have a good plan, and if so we back the individuals behind the practice. So we're looking to support the vet open up and support the community. We can fund all of the fit out costs if you were looking to set up. Other misconceptions are that you're going to have to make repayments during the build phase. Yeah. So there's products that allow you to set up and not have to make any repayments during construction. At Credabl, we're also really flexible. When you finish the construction, we can step up your repayments to match your cash flow, because that would be a big concern when you're setting up.
That was my big question. I'm like, okay, now I've got this beautiful thing, and now suddenly I need to.
We have not made any payments yet. But it really was that ultimately what we had to be happy that we had was that Brooke and I had enough money to be able to support the business in the first couple of months. Outside that, Credabl have allowed us pretty much to build and equip the clinic to the level that we wanted.
Support the clinic, but what about supporting yourself as well? If you go, well, the first 6 months or a year, well, if there's not a heap of profit, how do you survive on income? Do you pay yourself? Is that part of that initial loan? To say, well, for the first year, we'll pay director's salary or something like that?
I mean, Brooke and I are both employees of the business. We pay ourselves every fortnight. It's coming out of money brought in by work at the moment. It's not money borrowed from Credabl, but that's money that was first part of our cash flow, I think, forecasting, because we didn't have to spend any of our money on the fit out. Therefore, we had the money for that. So Brooke and I have put in a set amount of money each into the bank account, and that's what we bring in obviously from day-to-day work, and that money is what is paying us at the moment. Saying that, to my knowledge, Credabl have the ability to finance some of those first payments as well.
So we have working capital facilities. You would need to pay salaries and the rent. There's ways to negotiate your lease, though, that could be helpful. There's ways to fund the initial setup. But doing a cash flow forecast would be the number one advice I'd give anyone trying to set up, just to understand the viability of it. So.
Yeah, but who does that for you? Because as soon as you say that you should do a cash flow I'm like, I don't know what a fucking cash flow.
I did, for example, as I did with an accountant.
Okay.
When we just sat down, he said, what do I think? Again, there's been some prior experience, but this is what I think. And then they make it real. then they put it out over the next 12 to 18 months. So you give them as much information as you can. It's a really simple process. And a few days later, there's your cash flow forecast.
Because
It's
seems
templated.
so intimidating. So
It's just not. It's not. And that,
Honestly, I felt intimidated by it. I'd never even thought about a cash flow before in my life. And it's like, oh, you're just going to do this cash flow forecast. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Just email them my way. It was a little bit overwhelming, and I've never owned a vet clinic before, and I had no idea what we were doing.
so, but in hindsight though, was it daunting?
No, absolutely not. No,
Yeah.
it was pretty self-explanatory, having things explained to me as I went. I learn as I go. And I think you just have to jump in, right, and just try it, because you don't really know if it's going to be daunting or not. I was overwhelmed to start with, but by the end of it, it was pretty straightforward.
But one of the other potentially overwhelming things is, where do you go to ask for money? And I'd love to figure out who's who in the industry, in the finance industry, because there's the big banks. I can call any of them and say, can you give me money? But then and then you get brokers, and then you get other things. Like, where do you guys fit in the whole ecosystem?
Oh, we're very unique because we have our own offering that's really speedy and fast, and you have finance professionals looking after you and helping you reach your dreams. But then we're also brokers, so we can go out to the market and find the best solutions for our clients. There is a major trend for people to use brokers
So just to understand your audience here, that most of us don't understand anything about. So broker is, I go to the financial institutions and say, here's a plan. Can you guys give us money so we can give it? So basically you go help us find a mortgage or a loan or something. Is that a broker?
A broker will have access to a whole lot of lending options out in the market. So let's say if you were searching for the best vet to go to, I don't know, I suppose they'd be like the Google search of finance, and then you could tell them what was important to you or what you needed. So there are some finance providers out there that specialise in certain industries or do certain things that others don't do. So there's lots of options, and a broker should go out there and try sift through all of that and bring you some examples of what's best for you to meet your needs.
And do brokers have access to services and things that you can't necessarily get by doing a Google search?
Yes, so they would do, or they know the exact policy of each lender, and so it saves you a whole lot of time instead of sifting through everything to go to a broker.
I think for us, we did go to other banks as well, but certainly the broker, there might be 100 products on the market. They know that there's only worthwhile searching that one, and that one. So we'll make 3 applications and we'll see how that goes. And I think part of the reason we chose Credabl was highly to do with the other banks are still looking at serviceability based on what your current wage is now.
Gotcha.
But you might be at the time I was in a part-time job because I needed to be in a part-time job to be able to build a vet clinic at the same time. I physically couldn't have a full-time job and build a vet clinic. That's not doable. That's sort of what the other banks were asking of you. Whereas Credabl weren't worried so much about that, about the serviceability. That's correct, isn't it?
Because we're a specialist niche lender. So I suppose if you go out to brokers as well in the market, they could also not focus on a niche. And so we understand the vet industry and how the income generating capacity works and in a clinic with an experienced practitioner. So we were able to look at things differently to a major bank even, or another bank that would just be looking to take your home as security or look at your current earnings instead of the cash flow forecast to say, oh, we're building a vet clinic with a few surgeries and that's going to generate us so much income. So yeah, we take a forward-looking perspective and we back the individual practitioner behind it. So there are specialist lenders that will give you things that the majors won't, or the other banks.
And you said you guys are unique in that you're a broker, but not just a broker? Did you say there's something else?
Yeah, so we've got our own offering. So we're a non-bank lender. We've got our own source of funds.
So you can actually borrow money from Credabl directly. Whose dollars did you use to build this clinic? Is it theirs,
we
or
use
is it
Credabl dollars.
Credabl dollars.
So our offering's very quick and fast and high touch, good service, flexible as well. So we have a lot more flexibility.
As I think Caroline took 48 hours to give us a yes, where other people that we had approached, we were well into week 8.
Oh,
Yeah.
and some, yeah.
Yeah. So like literally it was such a lovely experience. We went out for a coffee, and at the end of our coffee, we're like, let's do this. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me so happy that I helped do that.
And you talk about the serviceability thing, because I would assume let's say I'm 5 years out and I've been working at a crappy vet wage and I don't have a hell of a lot of money in the bank, but now I want to start a business. I would assume that I'm going to be out because I don't have a lot of stuff to leverage again. Is that a misconception? What is the measure of how likely are you going to be able to service your loan?
It is a bit of a misconception. Like, I suppose the working capital part is important, but you don't have to have as much money as one thinks to start a practice. And so the finance of the actual fit out can be taken care of 100% in that instance. So I think if anyone's thinking of starting to set up a practice or like maybe just explore the funding options or start talking to some professionals. Yeah.
The other option that I see some people do, and I think maybe that's the finance part that drives you to it, is to start a practice within a group. There's a larger group and then they help you as an individual set up your business. Like, why did you decide not to do that route, for example, and do your completely own thing?
I love this question. You can see it just makes me smile. I think part of the reason I like setting up vet clinics is because it's starting from scratch. I have never even thought of buying an old practice, so someone else's that they're selling, or going into joint venture, because part of it that I love is the plan. It's the plan, what colours, what equipment, how we're going to do it, and it's from scratch. Like the clients that are coming in, this is the first time they've met us. And I get to say, hi, I'm Amber, this is Brooke. And we start a relationship from there.
You don't give any of the baggage.
There's no baggage. There's no staff baggage. There's no building baggage. There's no client baggage.
But is that a personality trait, do you think, that makes you like that? Because a lot of people do buy pre-existing practices because you buy Goodwill and you jump into the pool 5-10 years ahead of where you could be at the start.
Maybe I'm quite controlling, but I really like the ability to start from scratch. That I'm not going in saying, oh, I wish the floors were different. Like, I feel like for me, buying into a clinic, I would be starting with some regret or some things I wanted to change. Whereas starting new, you really are starting fresh. So it's so exciting. I've been a vet for nearly 30 years and here I am going, it's just so exciting. Like every client that comes in the door, and I'm not sure you get that to the same level when you're buying. But that's, very much, I think, my personality.
Because I feel like for a lot of, especially younger people who want to get into practice ownership, but a lot of the reason for going that route rather than starting your own thing is the fear of, can I get the money? Can I service the money? Whereas if I have a big business behind me saying, don't worry about that, we've got that, it probably drives it. Do you agree, Caroline?
Oh, it's probably a good start for someone who's going out for the first time on their own. It gives them a bit more comfort and they can look at the financial performance of the business as well. And there's a lot more to running a business as well when you're working in it, going to running it. That like having a super team like this is a great asset. In that instance, we would help them fund as well 100% of the purchase price of a vet practice. And you spoke about the goodwill. You're building up an asset that you can sell as well. So when you're purchasing.
Okay. And is it a very different process or is it the same sort of process, just different metrics?
It's same sort of process. So we still look at the individual behind the practice or looking to purchase in. But in this instance, there's an existing business. So we'd look at the cash flow and try help them understand the value of it and if they're paying too much or too little and those types of things.
So I feel like from an investment, say a safer bet, but a more reliable bet, because you can go, well, I can see what you've got. Whereas with these guys, it's like, well, I believe you.
It's all in. It's all in.
I believe that you can do it. But is it potentially an easier thing to get finance for, Caroline, or not?
Well, it is a bit less risky because the business is already trading and turning over, and you can see the profit, and so someone's coming in and taking it over as opposed to starting new. So yeah, there's less risk involved, so it is a little easier.
I've often heard the advice that if you're going to start a practice, own the property as well as, like, don't rent, buy. Do you rent here or you buy?
Completely rent. And all the clinics in the UK, they're all leasehold, so rent.
Yeah.
Very few vet clinics, the freehold is owned in the UK. So I was quite comfortable leasing, but I would say I probably do hear exactly your opinion. I just don't think it's a big concern.
Okay. And from a finance perspective, pros and cons, easier, harder, like, how do you assess that?
Oh, so buying a commercial property that you're already paying rent for. So say you set up your practice and you're paying rent. If you instead of paying the rent, then you're paying yourself to build an asset. We also fund 100% of the purchase. So I think a lot of vets would be paying rent somewhere and not realise, they could actually own the practice themselves. And there's also ways to access your self-managed super fund to do that. So we can lend up to 90% in super. So you're building an asset and paying yourself as well. Yeah.
But I do think that those buildings come along few and far between compared to leasing. Yeah, for sure. I would say if your only option is leasing in the position that you want, in the building that you want, and it's a great building, just leasing is not a reason not to do it. Because you could be waiting for years otherwise. Yeah. All
right, very practical question. And I asked a few people what would they ask, specifically owners. Say in retrospect, what would you have asked? Fixed versus variable borrowing, pros and cons. Like, how do you even consider that? What's the
only fix if you want certainty. If you try to figure out or crystal ball gaze about, then it's not a great idea. But yeah, variable lets you pay down your loan quicker, gives you more flexibility when you're making more money to pay less interest over the longer term. But if you're fixing, do it because you want a certainty of your repayment.
Okay, all right. So there's no real advantage other than planning, better financial planning, basically. So it's 2024 when we're recording this. The interest rates are not great. Is it a bad time to start a business, to borrow money at this point in time? If let's say somebody's going, I'm really ready to start a practice, but maybe I should wait a little bit.
I suppose the best financial advice I ever got was to spend less than you earn. And that's the same concept in this instance. So if you can lend money at a cost that's less than the asset that you're acquiring, then it makes sense to do it. So if you're spending money to set up a practice that's going to generate you income in profit and also build yourself up a goodwill that you can, a practice that you can sell one day, then it makes sense to do it. So if the income you're going to generate is more than the cost of the funding, then it's a good idea. It doesn't matter where rates are. That's why the cash flow forecast as well is important to see. It's basically money in, money out, and see what you've got left at the bottom.
When we did the cash flow forecasting, and this is where it becomes really important, and the accountant does it very quickly for you, is just put those interest rates in at what they are. Add on 2% if you need to. If you're someone that doesn't like to be disappointed, that was me. I think I put our cash flow forecasting for month one as we earned nothing. Well, that wasn't the case, but that's where we started. Month one, 0. And build it out. If at the end of the day you move into profit at a time frame that's acceptable to you, then fabulous. Let's build the clinic. If it's not acceptable, then maybe now isn't the time. But I suppose I've always looked at it as now is a bit of a difficult time financially, but if I can make the clinic work now, which is going to work really well in 5 years' time. So, let's do it now because this is a hard yards and we sort of get through it.
There's something else unusual about this clinic, and that's that we have a nurse who's a co-owner. That's not common, is it? Like that's not common at all. How did that happen? And why, Brooke? Why did you?
It happened over wine.
Yeah. There was never any intention to, come together and discuss opening a clinic. Amber and I got along well within our roles previously, and I think I saw a lot of similarities in the way I saw clinics running and everything like that with Amber. We did like ownership of a veterinary clinic as a nurse has never really been on the cards for me. I've always aspired to do something, big with my career. And I've always loved nursing. I went straight into nursing after I left year 12. I was very fortunate to land in a clinic that was privately owned, family owned. And it was an amazing clinic, strong leadership team, good protocols, practice policies, extremely supportive. As a junior nurse, I was nurtured and my career really did develop from there. I just don't see why it's just the role of a vet to own a clinic. As we get, further into the industry, you find a lot of corporates that are owning clinics and stuff, and a lot of them aren't vets. There are vets that own businesses and stuff like that. But I think a lot of it was I invest myself in my job and what I'm doing, and I have lots of visions about how I can see clinics running, and I was really struggling to implement them in my previous role. And I think Amber and I had spoken about frustrations previously, and I confided in her a little bit because I was struggling with where I was going. And yeah, I think we just bonded with similarities, and why not? Why
Traditionally, what would happen in that scenario is then it would be it used to be legal, right? I know when I lived in WA, not even that long ago, only vets could. That's why some of the corporates couldn't actually go into Western Australia, because you had to be fully vet. And so it used to be the law, and now it's just more tradition. So typically it'll be, okay, Amber will say, cool, I'm going to start a clinic. Brooke, you'll be my practice manager. Here's your salary. Versus with you guys, whose idea was it to say, well, actually, why don't we co-own this thing?
I didn't want that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I didn't want Brooke coming on board as an employee.
Why?
Because I know what it takes to start a new vet clinic from scratch, how much it takes out of you and how much you have to give. And I think that's hard to ask of an employee. And so I wanted Brooke as excited and as invested in this as me. I can't express how much the difference that it makes. And if she's going to put that much in, why on earth should she not be making profit from it? That seems crazy. Yeah. So, and this is, we're not just doing it for 6 months. This is for years. It affects not just our work life, it affects our family life, it affects our friends, it affects our family.
What did I read the other day? I think it was Scott Pape who said, he talked about partners, business partners. He says, yeah, it's like a marriage except without the sex to make up for the bad stuff.
I want to share this with someone. I want to have fun with someone. I want to be frustrated with someone. This is a journey, and we are in each other's pockets all the time. So come on board. We very much recognised a similar work ethic between ourselves. It was a natural, we just got on, it made sense. And so I went, well, I reckon I'm ready to do this, from someone that was never going to do it again. This is what I want to do. What do you think? And she was so excited straight away. It was like, yes.
Yes. She said is that not many nurses own clinics, and it's just like, why not? If you're going to be in the clinic all the time and helping grow the business and everything like that, why? I want a slice of the pie too. I'm going to put all myself into this business, and I'm going to throw everything at it that I've got and do my best, and I want to get the rewards too.
Yeah. I didn't want to do it on my own. I didn't do the last ones on my own. And obviously you are sharing profit with someone, but I think that's a fair condition if it means along the way it's an amazing journey.
It offers another perspective for our staff. Like half, sometimes even more, of the team is support staff. Nurses, receptionists, kennel hands, techs, and it offers another person for them to talk to when it comes to...
With a different perspective.
Yeah, with a different perspective. It's not about, I'm a nurse, I know how nurses work, I know how I feel when I leave after the day, if I've had a really good day where I've been involved in lots of things, and I feel like utilising the nurses and the receptionists and all the support team is so beneficial.
I'm highly needy. I'm a highly needy vet with my nurses, and I delegate huge amounts of work, and they do an amazing job. And having Brooke on board, it's been a natural fall of what my role is and what Brooke's role is. Just makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to have somebody with full skin in the game who has that other perspective. When we talked about before, Brooke, off air, about why don't I do podcasts for nurses? And I said, well, I'm not a nurse, so I don't have full empathy of what it feels like to be a nurse. Yeah. And for the same reason, well, why not have somebody right in the leadership team who has that perspective? So it actually makes a lot of sense. Hopefully we'll see.
I think it does.
I
think actually, my previous businesses were with another vet, and that was fabulous. But this has certainly it's been a more natural, this is your role, this is my role, of things that I just go, well, you know way more about that than me. Sort it out. Let me know if you need my help. Otherwise, I completely trust you to get it done. You know, whereas with 2 vets, who's going to know about half that stuff? You know, we've never been trained in it. That's not what we've done before. It's not what we do well.
The dividing of the roles has been extremely easy because I'm a nurse, I do the practice management stuff, and as a vet. And, you know, we divide the roles as to what we like because it's a different perspective, because we have different roles in the clinic. It's just naturally formed. We haven't sat down and said, you do this and I'll do this, and we are not allowed to cross lines or anything like that. It's very
complementary.
Yeah, we do. We complement each other. I have my role, I help her, she has her role, she helps me, and yeah, it's just works. Just works, yeah.
How cool. I'm excited for you guys. But are there any things that jump out that, especially Amber, because you've done it a couple of times, for somebody considering it, things to think about or
Do it.
do it?
Do it. But yeah, things to consider: the location. There's no point putting all this effort into a bad location. So that's a huge one. That doesn't necessarily mean no other vet clinics, but the location has to be able to support another vet clinic. The other one is who you do it with. So best thing I've done, go into it with Brooke. You've got to find that person.
Yeah.
Or do it yourself.
Yeah. So what's the vision? What's the vision? What does the neighborhood vet to Wanton look like in 5 years' time?
When someone asks you what's the vision, I sort of back away from that question so often because I picture all these big words that people put down, and anyone could put down a bunch of words. So you're like, oh, well, do we really need to do that? But I thought about it. So what we put down was we want to stay small, maintaining quality. We want to make it profitable while maintaining integrity. Got to keep it fun.
Why that stay small bit? Because for a lot of people, it's all about growth.
We're in a small community. I had my clinics before had ended up with 70 staff. I wasn't looking for that again. I felt like I ticked that box. And part of the reason for me coming back into it was coming back into the personal bit. So I can spend 40 minutes chatting to someone in a consult room if they need it.
It's interesting because it's stay small and then be profitable. And I feel like that's often where the conflict comes in because a lot of people feel like, well, to be profitable, we have to optimize, grow, squeeze in 10-minute consults, you know, and run that model of efficiency.
I think if there is efficiency, and that's part of here is the efficiency. We have 3 consult rooms and they'll be run by 1 vet. We do team consulting. So a receptionist comes in, then the vet comes in, then the nurse comes in. The client stays in the room. Everything gets done in that room. So it's highly efficient, but at the same time it is allowing huge client interaction. The clients know Brooke as well as they know me, as well as they know Kira. And so it's small to maintain client interaction, client trust is so important.
So how do you keep it small? Because here's what happens. You're going to start and people are going to love you. And then you're going to get heaps of clients and you're going to be full. And you're like, well, we need another vet.
It doesn't mean no other vets, but it means running the vet clinic highly efficiently so the staff that we have here are all needed. Because I've certainly been in clinics where there's stuff everywhere, yet they're still not getting the work done. Back to basics. What are the protocols? Where does the vet only need to do the vet work? Where should the nurse be doing the nurse work? Where are all the support staff? So I think when I say keeping it small, like this is only a 2 or 3 vet clinic. That's all we'll be fitting in.
Yeah, but what if it grows to the point where in 5 years' time you go, all right, well, we've got lots of people who love the way we do things. We need a bigger space.
I suppose we sit down and see, but that's not always more profitable.
Yeah.
So, and the important bit that is not always more profitable. I think probably we were more profitable as a small clinic in my previous ones than we were in the big one.
I've heard that from a couple of people who said, yeah, when it was just me and I had half or a quarter of the stress of managing a whole team, and I actually made more money just by myself.
I think, and as the bigger, you get and the busier you get, you don't want to lose that personal. The personal touch is what makes it different.
And that's such a cool shift. And I see that more and more because our generation, that the way to run a vet clinic is full, go. And then we wonder why 10 years in, 5 years in, we go, shit, I've had enough of this. I can't anymore. It's that feeling of exhaustion. And there's more and more people who are going, I don't want to do it this way.
I remember opening up in the UK at the time, so it's a fair few years ago, with 40-minute new consults. If it was a new client, they get 40 minutes. We're doing the same here. Gosh, I was told it was not possible. There's no way I could make a clinic run if I did that. I was told that again and again and again. I'd like to say, yeah, I do smile a bit when I go, well, actually, that's not the case. And now we see it's so common now. Consult times have been pulled out to allow vets to interact with their clients. And yeah, there's always a tipping point. It doesn't mean all consults get to be 40 minutes. I don't mean that. But I do mean you get to look at the diary and decide which consults get to be 40 minutes. There is time for that. That's smarter, efficient working rather than just more and more hamster wheel working.
And more enjoyable. I mean, coming from a nurse's perspective, I love being involved with the consults and I love having the relationships. Know clients by their first name. Hi, Pam, how you going? You know, how's Fluffy today? And Pam knows me by my first name and we have that interaction. I do go home getting a lot of job satisfaction from it. Support staff are so important within the clinic. It's not just vetting that happens. And I think utilising nurses, it doesn't just provide, efficiency within the clinic, it gives the nurses happy people, happy nurses, happy support staff, because they do get a lot of job satisfaction. Well, I know I get a lot of job satisfaction being heavily involved with the clinical side of things. Yeah.
But the previous clinics, we had got to the size where we had reception managers, hospital managers, veterinary managers. I could go down to do a surgery and I'd have to say to one of the staff I did know, who am I doing theatre with? I don't know that. Who employed them? How have they been here for? And so, we talk about that one of the things I really enjoy is the personal side of it. You can see as with growth, the personal side, it disappears. And it really does quite quickly. There comes a spot where you can't know everyone and you can't know their story and you can't relate. And that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's a different way of doing it. And so this time coming in, very much, part of it is I'm not aiming for that. I now have a different vision.
Caroline's sitting here going, but I do think you should do a lot of consults.
No, I was just thinking I resonate with that because as Credabl, we have the same, I get a lot out of my client interactions as well. And it's that more personal touch where we're here to help them. And really, I get a lot of satisfaction seeing your vision come to life as well.
From the financial side of this, Caroline, is there anything else that I haven't asked? Again, I'm oblivious to the questions that are out there. Anything important for somebody about to or thinking about starting on the ownership journey?
I think just probably the message is you probably can do it before you think you're able to.
Huge message.
And it does seem overwhelming, but if you just start speaking to the right advisors or consultants to get your information, it could probably come together a lot quicker as well than you think and be the process a lot smoother.
Awesome. Okay, wrap up with the standard questions. You can't get away without it. So first one about podcast listening. Who wants to take? We won't make everybody say the whole thing. Who's going to talk about podcasts?
That would be me. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. Probably one of the only podcasts I listen to is the Vet Vault.
Oh, yes. Favorite Vet Vault episodes?
My favourite Vet Vault episode was Why Can't We Do It Differently?
Oh, with Russell. Yeah, there's a lot of resonance in what they're thinking. Are completely different. They don't want to keep it small.
He spoke a lot about giving staff autonomy to do their job. And I get a lot of, like I was saying, job satisfaction, and having Amber trust me in my abilities is massive, and exactly what he was saying on the podcast, and it's so true. Just you need to be able to delegate jobs and have trust and respect within relationships in the clinic, and it's,
And that was his one takeaway when I asked him what has he learned, and he said, delegate sooner. Don't try and hang on to all the little jobs because you think you're the only one who can do it. All right, pass along question. Where I ask a question. Who's going to do the pass along question? Where I ask a question from a previous guest to one of you, and then you have to give me a question for my next guest. Is that going to be you?
That's for me. Yeah, give me the hard one.
No, it's a good one. It's non-vet related. What is one place that inspires you, and one place that really disappointed you?
Well, I think my answer for the two is the same, and it's Africa. I suppose growing up in South Africa and being there, it's a very inspiring place. It kind of gets under your skin, and there's nowhere in the world like it, and especially like the wildlife and the natural beauty and even the culture of the people. So that was inspiring, but then also disappointing because it's not safe to live there. So
it's we can talk for days about this. I know exactly what you mean. Right. And then the one message, you stuck with that one, Amber. Yeah. You have a couple of minutes to speak to all of the new grads of 2024 and give them a little bit of advice or inspiration or just a message.
I hear so much negative stuff about the veterinary industry over the last few years, but they do need to know it is, and it can be amazing the whole way through. It doesn't mean your journey is going to be the same. Feel free to mix it up, change jobs, move countries, get out for a while, get back in. It doesn't have to be linear. Like for me, I've had a fabulous career. It hasn't always been easy, but I look back and I love the fact that I'm a vet. I would have no problem with my children if they wanted to be vets. And now, almost 30 years out, I'm going back in and doing another business. I love it. It can be hard.
Guaranteed it's going to be hard, yeah.
That's okay. Be brave. And yeah, it can be an awesome career.
I feel like that's partially why I wanted to start this. It's exactly that. So many vets that you speak to when you say, so are your kids going to be vets? And they're like, no ways. I will definitely not let my kids be a vet. I'm like, that's so sad.
I think so. Like sad. My daughter said that, I'd be so excited.
You're like, yeah.
It opens so many doors. I've travelled all around the world. I've done all different things. Done things that I never thought I would do. Why not?
All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Brooke, I think what you're doing is amazing. I think being an example to other nurses out there, I've talked often about that ceiling that I think nurses feel in their career, nurses and techs. It's so good to see people smash that ceiling. And what you guys are doing, that different approach, I think is so refreshing. And Caroline, thank you for making it possible. Before you disappear, I wanted to tell you about my weekly newsletter. I speak to so many interesting people and learn so many new things while making the clinical podcasts. So I thought I'd create a little summary each week of the stuff that stood out for me. We call it the VetVault 321, and it consists of 3 clinical pearls. These are 3 things that I've taken away from making the clinical podcast episodes. My light bulb moments. 2 other things. These could be quotes, links, movies, books, a podcast highlight, maybe even from my own podcast. Anything that I've come across outside of clinical vetting that I think that you might find interesting. And then 1 thing to think about, which is usually something that I'm pondering this week and that I'd like you to ponder with me. If you'd like to get these in your inbox each week, then follow the newsletter link in the show description wherever you're listening. It's free and I'd like to think it's useful. Okay, we'll see you next time.